Aleksi B has been in the news lately, and he's apparently being accused of tax fraud following a tax audit. And as for what exactly happened there, well, I don't know for sure, but here's an educated guess about the issues involved. The tax administration basically found he should have been paid a salary, but tried to mask it as business income, putting it into his company as revenue and keeping the profit there to avoid huge personal income taxes. The tax administration believes that all this income from gaming should have essentially been taxable personal income for him, basically salary. But Aleksi B has funneled these into his company, Aleksi B Corporation, and then from there, only a relatively small amount was actually paid out as salary or dividends to himself. And in this setup, where the company pays 20% corporate tax on its profits versus what would have been paid in personal income tax on hundreds of thousands of euros, they've basically saved or hidden tens of percent of that total amount. I should emphasize that I don't have exact certainty here, and once the case becomes public at some point and we get court documents and so on, we can look into the logic and background, but for now, this is just professional speculation. And generally, if we take a closer look at whether sports or esports is considered taxable personal income for you as an individual, or if it can actually be treated as your company's income instead, it really depends on one main thing. It depends on whether what you are doing is classified as an independent professional activity or a business activity, such as, for example, playing golf or tennis professionally, both of which are typically seen as activities that can be counted as company income for you rather than just personal income. So the key factor is the nature of the activity and how it is recognized for tax purposes. But when it's a matter of it being a team sport where you play in a team like hockey players do, then it's fundamentally and practically always personal income and salary for you. In that case, you're seen as being in an employment relationship with the team, and the income the team gets from winning, which is then distributed to you, is considered salary. And so we're in this kind of borderline case, and this might actually be something that ends up being argued in a courtroom. So this isn't necessarily a case of completely obvious tax evasion. In esports, this borderline question arises, and as far as I know, there are no Supreme Administrative Court rulings on whether it's truly an individual or a team sport. And yes, it's often played, and in some cases as teams, but is it actually an association of individual players who play as individuals and thus receive their compensation and prizes as individuals? And that's like risk-taking personal business activity by one person, in which case it could go through a company. Or is it the case that this esports team plays together as a team and receives the prize as a team, and it's then distributed, in which case it should be taxable personal income? Depending on how the paperwork looks, and apparently the tax administration thinks it should have been personal income, and now they'll likely push for sanctions through the district court that haven't been seen before for this kind of thing, where it's been taxed as corporate income instead of personal income. It's probably going to be extremely expensive for Aleksi. Good luck with that. I'm looking forward to seeing the documents when they're made public. But we could really have a good fight there, all the way to the Supreme Administrative Court. And there's also an interesting aspect to it that he might not necessarily get a very harsh sentence if he can show that the interpretation was unclear or disputed. But I mean, if you think about it, having to pay it all back with interest and a 2 to 25% tax penalty, he could end up with a total fine of something like 250,000 plus interest. That's quite a lot of money. He's probably spent it all on something else.